So I have a whole bunch of questions in response to my post saying you could ask me about the process of moving my site, which has been on Squarespace since 2009 or so, maybe earlier. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I paid them a lot of money over the years. And I was on 5, then 6, which then became 7. But anyway, I don't remember the history. A lot of money. And I got a whole bunch of questions, and eventually I'll close caption these. I'll put these up on my website. I'm out walking the dog. Nelly, say hi. He's a puppy. Sorry to make you sick there, but or I might record nice versions of them. I don't know. Anyway, but I thought I'd answer them really quickly. Who knows? I might even try to use IGTV. I don't know what I'm doing with social media, folks. Anyway, one of the first questions was, what was the sort of most tedious, most time-consuming part of moving from my ancient Squarespace site, which had multiple hundreds of, my dog is just going crazy, multiple hundreds of blog posts. It actually had 4 different blogs on it. It had, I think, 200 and some odd pages because of the way the nesting index stuff works out in Squarespace. And it had just a lot of pages that have been like from different iterations on my website all the way back to that one that was version 5. And so tons and tons and tons of old stuff that had not been that had just not been dealt with. I'd no indexed all of it that wasn't relevant, but it still was a lot of stuff. So for me, the biggest thing was actually just going through all of that content because it was just so much. And a lot of it, I actually couldn't even remember why I created it, or the reasons I created it were no longer relevant. Like, we don't do product-based stores at all anymore. We do service products, or digital products, but not not t-shirt stores or what have you. I had a ton of information about that stuff. I refer that out now to other people who that's what they're really good at. So just going through every single thing and making a decision, do I keep this as is? Do I reconceive the content? That was something that was pretty common. Do I delete it? If I delete it, where do I redirect it? Do I keep it for archival purposes and no index it or password protect it? I think in the end, I know my site is maybe like 20% the size it was before, maybe less. So that was a really, really big job. And for me, it was in a sense almost kind of emotional too, because it wasn't that, it sort of, I don't know, it kind of made me sad almost that it was like things I tried and didn't work, or things I tried and it worked well and then I realized I didn't like doing, or, it's just kind of weird looking through the legacy of your business like that. So that was one of the most tedious things. Aside from that, like, Josh cleaned up our blog posts and that kind of thing. So for me, it wasn't so bad, but going through, you actually have to, when you do a migration from Squarespace to WordPress, the way the imagery works, you have to open and basically validate every single post. So when when Josh did that, it was just really boring sitting there and clicking on each image, making sure it properly imported. And so that was not very fun for him specifically. So it's definitely something like the data management is just not fast. My other issue, once I got all that handled, is I actually started this process about a year ago. And so that was, the dog is very excited because he saw a squirrel. That was, I think I did 3 different design concepts. I only do 1 design concept for clients. So I was clearly out of my mind because it took me that long to hit on something that really conveyed the tone visually and actually in verbiage of what I wanted it to be. So that was a lot of work, but that was sort of inside my head work. So if I'd come across that sooner, this would not have been such a painful process. Say hi, Valley.
All right, so we had another question. Someone said to the effect, why would you move to WordPress? Because Squarespace is more secure and easier. I think we need to think about the premise a little bit. It depends on how you define secure and how you define easy. There's lots of variables around those concepts. We love using Squarespace for small websites for, say, consultants. It's awesome. It is perfect platform for those people. They don't have a lot of functionality needs. They need a really great looking website that is low maintenance and that allows them to create content. They usually have no more than 7 pages, and it is there's something simple about it, even though there's a lot of thinking that goes into the architecting of those kinds of sites. They don't have a ton of complexity. For a site like that, Squarespace right now is probably the best solution. It is relatively easy for clients to update, though I actually had a really interesting conversation with a client recently who we moved from Squarespace to WordPress because she was putting together an interactive database. You can't do that on Squarespace. And she said actually working in WordPress has inspired her to be more vigilant about creating content, because she felt that whenever she fired up Squarespace, she was like designing a website every time she was creating a blog post. With WordPress, she just bangs out the words and hits publish. So it's definitely something that is different for different people, and that's something to keep in mind. But if you are doing a large website, there's construction. If you are doing a large website, Squarespace is far, far more complicated in my experience. And that's because it's somewhat fixed in version 8, but, index pages are very complicated and annoying. There isn't a deep level of navigation, so you can't create really good structures within your website. There's no real meaningful database. We end up hacking blogs a lot to create sort of pseudo databases. There's just a lot of management stuff that if you have a site that's large, complex, anything like that, all of a sudden what you're doing is you're hacking a site together, trying to make Squarespace work for you. Sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, I could just do this in like 10 minutes in WordPress, whereas I've spent 2 days in Squarespace. So I question the thinking, and that's one of Squarespace's selling points. And I think they, in a sense, need to rethink the way they position that selling point. It's problematic because it's definitely not true for all use cases. Nonprofits in particular run up against that. Those limitations really frustrate them. There's just lots of reasons why it's not always less complicated or easy. Sorry, it's very cold out. Anyway, so with that said, I still think that for, like I said, small one-person consultants, people who just need a brochureware type website, people who are just blogging, people who want a great portfolio, Squarespace is really good. Use it. Enjoy. We've worked, on Squarespace, WordPress, a little bit with Shopify, and they all have their uses. In the WordPress setup, we use something called Elementor, and Elementor makes I always say it's a Squarespace-like experience where you edit your content on the front end. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with that. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of making WordPress more quote unquote easy, like Squarespace is perceived to be. In terms of security, though, now that is a really complicated question, because one of the reasons I quit doing WordPress for many years was because I had problems with clients getting hacked. And, we do things like install dog's on another squirrel, install security plugins, all those kinds of things. Clients would get hacked. At that time, I was not as savvy a business person as I am now, and I didn't put parameters around working with clients like I should have. And so what that means is they would say, come to me with really terrible hosting. And they'd want to have a very complex website on a really crappy host. And I wouldn't say, hey, if you want to work with me, we need to get you on a premium hosting plan. That just wasn't in my thinking. Or, they would not want to have, they wouldn't want to be on a maintenance plan, or they wouldn't want to they wouldn't have a staff person assigned to updating their plugins. So you can see how this can all cascade, where they would be like, well, we want WordPress, but we basically don't want to pay for good hosting. We don't want to do updates. We don't want to manage our plugins. And so then there'd be problems. And I didn't ever say, well, then we're not going to work with you, because I was a dummy. So now, we use really great hosting. If clients want to work with us, we launch their site on Flywheel. They're welcome to take it wherever they want. We don't have any ownership of client projects after we're done working with them. But they do launch on Flywheel because Flywheel handles all the security. They actually have a lot of restrictions on what plugins you can install. And I think that's a feature, not a glitch. Some designers get really annoyed by that. But I think it's great. And we recommend that our clients use, my dog wants to walk across the tennis court. All right, cool. We recommend that our clients sign up for Flywheel's service where they do your plugin updates for you. Built into Flywheel hosting. I sound like such a cheerleader for them, but I think they do a great job. Built into Flywheel's hosting is your core WordPress updates. That was something a lot of our clients previously on WordPress wouldn't do. And so you can see there's solutions to that, but at the same time, I'm still not going to sit here and tell you that it's the right solution for everyone. Just like Squarespace isn't the right solution for everyone. So security is basically, I think with any platform, you actually need to have a security plan. Even with Squarespace, I see all kinds of weak passwords in Squarespace. I see people not having two-factor authentication turned on. I see people sharing passwords like in a whole organization. There's one password. And they don't change that password when someone leaves. I see people sending passwords over email. So I think security plans in general are something that people need to take much more seriously and really think about how to. So the last question I'm going to answer right now on this dog walk before the dog gets really mad at me for not giving him my full attention is, what did you use as the base to build the site? And I love it when people ask me nerd questions. And for our theme, so that's the underlying architecture, we used Astra, which is a really great theme. You can kind of make it as simple or complex as you want, and I like that about it. You can use a ton of features, or you can use like no features. We used some of the features, but I turn off what I don't use just to kind of improve the speed. But I do a lot of basically the theme design in Astra. So like your colors, your fonts, all that kind of exciting stuff. And then for our front end builder, we used Elementor Pro, of course. Love Elementor. I think it's really fantastic. I'm really just loving how it can create a kind of a Squarespace-like experience for users in terms of being able to edit on the front end. But what I really love about it is the theme builder. So you can create all kinds of basically templates that your blog post will automatically pop into that, or your case studies will automatically pop into that template, or just so many things you can do. And then you can save and reuse sections and do lots and lots of nifty stuff. Once you have all your templates built, it makes production incredibly fast. It does require you to really think through what your templates are going to be, or else you'll have a big old mess. So that's something that I think those of us who do work actually in Squarespace may be a little bit more familiar with thinking through that way. At least Squarespace kind of made me think that way. Dog saw another squirrel. Very exciting stuff. And so that's something that, I find to be a little bit, that takes up some time for me, just thinking through what the templates are going to be and all that. In terms of other plugins we use to sort of build on that, there's an Ajax search function from Crockablock I really like that's on there. And then the bigger pieces that are on there is custom post types and advanced custom fields. And those two things sometimes work together and sometimes work on their own, basically allowing for dynamic content. That's how my calls to action are so easily changed on all my blog posts and on every page. So that's kind of nifty. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, and then SEO Press Pro. That's the plugin. It's kind of like Yoast, but one, much more affordable, and two, I find it easier to use and less ugly than Yoast. And I hate ugly interfaces. So that's kind of the backbone of what we've got going on. I'm sure there's a few things I've forgotten. I tried to keep my coding to a minimum because I got too much on my plate. There is actually also in the back end, which you can't see yet, is LearnDash, which is an LMS tool. I'm going to be putting our free mini workshops onto that, and our membership that we have for our past clients will go onto that. So everything will be kind of in one nice, tidy location. That is also going to lay the groundwork for some cool info products, some free stuff, some paid stuff. If there's anything you'd like to learn from us, you can send me a message, and I'm happy to chat with you about, your idea and what we might put together. I really love doing, I've put together over the last year a lot of workbooks and one-sheeters and that kind of thing, and people have been really positive about them. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that, but I'm also looking forward to putting together some more substantive stuff now that I have a little breathing room in my schedule finally. So that's exciting for me too. Anyway, if you have other questions, just reply to the little question box thingy in Instagram.